Can a dog be trained to stop doing the wrong thing? Oh, dogs who can follow commands are, well, they're beautiful, aren't they? But corrections alone, well, if the dog doesn't know what to do instead of the wrong behavior, they can end up anxious. On the other hand, what gets rewarded gets repeated. In case we haven't met, I'm veterinarian Dr. Jeff Nickel, and if you have a dog like this who drives you crazy, or you know somebody who does, by all means, put it in the comment line and I'll address it right now. And in fact, if you do have friends or family members who could learn from this information, find it helpful for their dog, by all means, put their name in and they'll get a notification. And if you can hear me loud and clear, would you hit the wow button just so that I know that we don't have technical difficulties? And if you find this information helpful, send me a few hearts just so that I know I'm being useful. So this is Miss America. She's the Nickel Family Border Collie, and she's going to help me demonstrate something here in a little bit. But I want to tell you a little bit. Well, number one, I'm residency trained in veterinary behavior medicine. I'm actually very well schooled in the research that supports everything I talk about on these things, every diagnosis I make. Oh, who came? It's Cindy. Hello, Cindy. Thank you for coming. It's excellent to see you. So anyway, I want to start with a story about a lady named Miriam who brought me her dog Mandy in Santa Fe. Mandy was a Springer Spaniel, spayed female, about 3 years old, who had a history since puppyhood of becoming increasingly reactive. Anything that passed this dog in the house, on the street, bicycles, other dogs, people, just little normal sounds around the house, and Mandy would react. She'd lunge and lurch and bark and growl and snap and try to chase off everything. Frankly, this dog was a nervous wreck. And of course, like most people, Miriam she didn't realize it was a mistake until she figured out that it wasn't making any difference at all. You know, she was yelling and reprimanding and jerking on the leash and doing this kind of stuff. And some people take it even a step further by, punishing their dogs. And it still doesn't get any better. Well, part of the problem is that a dog can be told what not to do, but there's a reason why they are, there's a reason why they react. They're motivated because, in the case of Mandy, she was highly anxious. But you can have a dog who's actually normally behaved, doesn't have a behavior disorder, but who, frankly, doesn't know what else to do. So just telling them what not to do doesn't make any difference at all. Carolyn, would you take a look at this? It's not... there it is. Okay, we're good. We're good. There we go. Good. Okay. And yes, dealing with an amped up reactivity in the car. Lisa. Okay. Thank you for that. And, by the way, Dr. Sally Foote, my colleague. Thank you for coming, Sally. Sally's a great colleague and does a lot of this kind of stuff herself. So Lisa, here's what can happen in the car. And you've got an additional problem there because dogs are not genetically programmed in their little brains to understand what the heck's going on when I'm going 25 or 50 or 75 miles an hour. Things are just moving like crazy. Dogs are naturally inclined to check out what's going on. That's normal behavior. But your car has windows. And by the way, if you took all the windows out of your car, your dog could jump out and check stuff out and then run along and jump back in again. Well, you're not going to do that, I hope. But it would solve the problem of what we call barrier frustration, which is those windows that the dog doesn't know what to do with. And of course, again, everything's moving by really fast. Avoidance is one of the most important methods that we use to treat behaviors, because every time the dog reacts to something, even if it's a good behavior and you reinforce, or the dog ramps up and behaves inappropriately, we are rehearsing neural pathways through the brain. And just like any other skill that you practice, whether it's athletic or musical or writing or anything, you read more, you become a faster, better reader, because practice makes perfect for physical reasons in the brain. So if you let your dog, Lisa, continue to ramp up like this, things will continue getting worse. And yeah, I get it. You know, the dog's driving you crazy. You're trying to drive safely. You're yelling at your dog, you know, kind of like the kids on vacation. If you don't stop that, we're turning this car around and going right back home, right? Which, of course, makes no difference either. So avoidance is really the key to what's going on in your car. What I encourage you to do is go, and you can get these on the internet, of course. You can get them at pet supply stores. But a fabric collapsible crate. They collapse down pretty small. You can store them easily. They're lightweight. And you can pop this open in the back of your car and have your dog ride inside this fabric collapsible crate. The beauty of these, and you want to order the right kind, is you want the kind where the windows will zip down, so when the dog's in this fabric crate, she cannot see outside the car. Now you want to leave a gap at the bottom of the flap on the front door of the crate so that your dog can see out a little bit. You certainly don't want the dog getting overheated in there. But you don't want your dog seeing what's going on outside the car, because the dog has no concept of what to do about it. And so correcting that kind of behavior isn't going to get you anywhere. And in fact, when you respond to the dog, he thinks that he just did the right thing, because he doesn't believe he has any entitlement to get a response from his leader unless, you know, you wanted more of the same behavior. So by all means, do the, oh, and Beth, thank you for showing up. Beth is among the greatest people I've ever had working in my veterinary hospital. In fact, maybe even the greatest, because she always anticipated what the doctors were going to need, and she made us more efficient, and she treated the pets with such kindness, and she was fun to work with. And Beth, I miss you still, even though it's been like, what, 35 years. Anyway, thank you for coming. So, anyway, we've got Mandy here, the Springer Spaniel. Why do you think they call them Springers, right? These dogs are pretty active. So here's Mandy reacting to everything, and I didn't have to tell Miriam, her person, to stop reacting to the dog. Miriam had already figured that out. It wasn't getting her anywhere. So the first thing I had them do was I said, Miriam, look, we need to make it a little bit easier for Mandy to follow your instructions. Instead of telling her what not to do, we're not going to respond to the bad behavior, because we don't want to confuse her and make her think you want more of that nonsense, that lunging and snapping and growling. So instead, you've got a leash on her, create distance, ignore temporarily, and, you know, get as far away as you realistically can, because with greater distance is always going to be less arousal. And then we're going to teach your dog to do something instead of. And in fact, this girl here, this little border collie, when we got her, she was 8 weeks old, and as soon as we took her out of the car, in fact, that was her first exposure to cars. She'd never even seen one before where she was bred. And we took her for a walk on the irrigation ditch near our house. And we get down to the road, and here goes a car, and she immediately wants to chase it. Well, she's a border collie. And they herd sheep by sort of staring at them and intimidating them and doing what they want. Border collie has good bite inhibition. They never bite the sheep, but the sheep are like, ooh, you're a little scary. I'll do whatever you want. Okay? So that's how this breed works. So immediately there's this car going by, and she has to chase it like it's some sheep, right? Well, again, jerking on the dog isn't going to help. Instead, we want her to do something else. And in fact, we have done this so many times with Miss America through her life that after actually the first, well, it took a while, a couple of years, when she saw a car in the distance and she was off leash on the irrigation ditch, I didn't even have to call her anymore. She just came right in front of me, because she knew that we had a ritual that we engaged in. It was a series of things that earned her reinforcers. And a dog wants to earn resources from his or her leader. Our dogs believe that we control everything that's essential for their life, because that's how they function with their leader in a free-living canine social group in the wild. And even though they're domestic pets and they belong with us, they are, you know, they think we know everything about canine leadership. And by the way, it's a lot different than human leadership in many respects, because their leader never tells them what not to do. The leader takes away the resource. It is a resource of an interaction with the grand poobah. You know, that's you. Okay. So instead, here's what we did. And this is what I taught Miriam to do with Mandy. So Miss America, honey, will you sit up for your daddy? That's a big girl. So I taught her how to teach the dog to target and immediately reinforce with a clicker. And I've used this little gizmo, the click stick, in the past. There's a lot, you can use handheld clickers, And as a target instrument, you can use your fingertip, a ballpoint pen. But this gizmo here, because it's adjustable and you can point it any way you want, I bring this out and I say, Maddie, target. And she touches her nose to it and earns an immediate click, and then the treat comes. Okay? And so when a car comes and she shows up in front of me, the next time I might bring the target stuck down here and go, target, and she immediately touches her nose to it. I mean, we've done this thousands of times. The immediacy of the reinforcer is what's so important in this thing. You could use food alone, but that 0.5 seconds that it takes if your thumb is already on the button of the click stick, that C-L-I-K-S-T-I-K, and here, I'll show it to you. I'll turn the camera around. There we go. There it is, click stick. Okay? And you can get these things on the internet. They're about 20 bucks. Well, Miss America here, her real name's Maddie, has she says, I'm ready to target anytime, Dad. I don't mind. Target. Very nice. Her response is quick because the reinforcer is quick. Now, a click is a neutral sound. It's essentially meaningless unless a dog has learned that it is paired with food. In other words, the food always follows it. So, with Miriam, what she did with that Springer Mandy, who was, again, a pretty agitated, nervous wreck of a dog, frankly, was she ignored, created distance, and then pivoted so that Mandy's rear end was towards the person, the bicycle, the car, whatever, and then whipped out her target stick. Well, it was interesting. Things went well. We did a follow-up or two, and I didn't hear anything back from Miriam. I went on with my other cases. And one day in Santa Fe, I was at the specialty hospital up there seeing my cases, and it was between clients. And here she comes. She's out in the reception room when I was out there with Mandy, and she was in to see the dermatologist. Skin problems, which are very common. And so I said, Miriam, haven't seen you in a year. How the heck are you and Mandy doing? And I didn't even have to wait for an answer, because here's Mandy watching her person. And that's really critically important, because a good subordinate dog in a canine social group keeps her eye on the leader. And there would be little noises around the hospital, people talking, phone ringing, other dogs barking, that kind of stuff. And those triggers would cause Mandy to kind of get a little bit nervous. And I had taught Miriam how to recognize the early signs of ramp-ups in arousal. And she followed my instructions. And so when she saw Mandy start to scan and look around, her body kind of tense, maybe lick her lips, easy for me to say, yawning, those kinds of indicators of anxiety, rising anxiety, she would immediately bring out the click stick, which she was carrying in her hand all the time, and say, Mandy, target. Miss America says, that's not my name, but I'll do it anyway. And while I was chatting with Miriam for all of a few minutes, probably every 20 or 30 seconds, she was glancing at her dog and then bringing out the target stick and putting it in a different position, having her dog target, click, treat. She had her treat bag on, like I had told her. And this dog's arousal would ramp up only a little bit before Miriam redirected her to this ritual so that this dog could earn reinforcers by following its leader's directions, which is what subordinate dogs are hardwired to do for us. And it was a response substitution is what we call that. What it means is that instead of that old dysfunctional knee-jerk nonsense, which, when these dogs do things like bark out the window of the car, right, Lisa? I mean, you'll never get anywhere telling them to stop doing it. So instead what we do is, number one, set them up for success by withholding our interaction so the dog doesn't believe she's getting reinforced for the wrong thing. If possible, which you really can't do while you're driving, but you can do on leash, create distance while ignoring, and then pivot so the dog's rear end is toward that arousal trigger, again, making it easier for the dog to succeed, and then whip out your click stick, target, click, treat, and the dog goes, phew, boy, that's a lot more fun. That's a lot easier on me and everybody else than doing this other thing. And if you repeat this a few hundreds of times, then you'll find that when those kinds of triggers come along, you'll notice your dog's checking in with you going, don't we have a ritual that we engage in for these events? And of course you do. Let me see, I'm wondering who else is, oops, Trying to see if there was another question here. And, well, Carolyn, this darn thing is, shucks. There we go. Okay. Whoops. I think we're okay. I'm able to watch the questions on my iPad here rather than squinting and leaning into my iPhone, which we're using to shoot this Facebook Live. It's a lot easier for me, and you don't see me kind of leaning into your face. So, these jerks on the leash and that kind of stuff, forget that nonsense. So, I hope that makes sense. So, you know what this really comes down to? It comes down to empathy, and you hear me talk about that. You know, that's walking a mile in the other person's shoes, and in this case, a member of a different species. You know, there's this old thing called the golden rule. We've all heard that. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The problem that exists with that old-fashioned golden rule is that there's an assumption in there that everybody wants the same things I do. Well, we all want to be treated well, I think. But there's a lot of individual differences, isn't there? Aren't there? And aren't a lot of other people walking around struggling with their own anxieties and some of their past, maybe racial discrimination, things that, you know, I don't have? Well, you know, our dogs are different than we are. In fact, they're quite different in some respects. Our cats, you know, they think the way we do in some important respects, but they're rather different in other respects. They're not little people in furry suits. And so the people I meet aren't just like me either. You know, it's kind of a mistake for me to believe that they ought to be. So if I have empathy and if I have kindness toward others, then you know what you can do is you can do some of the same things you would do with a dog. You can do with other people. You can practice acts of kindness on your dog and actually get pretty good at it. You can notice when someone else does something right. Somebody gives you really good service, even half good service. And you can say, thank you. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for helping me. Maybe they were only helping you 25% of what they could. Well, if we thank them for that, they might even connect with that and go, actually, it felt pretty good getting reinforced for that. Maybe I'll do more of it. You know, it's interesting. There are people very often who will do more for others than they will do for themselves. You know, you hear people talking about not wearing a mask during the coronavirus epidemic because, oh, heck, I'm young and healthy. Well, I'm healthy. I'm not that young anymore. But I still feel like I'm bulletproof, darn it. But if you wear the mask for others, because we know that a whole lot of folks are carrying this virus with no symptoms, but they are, as we say in epidemiology, shedding virus particles. In other words, as I'm talking, as the breath is coming out of my lungs, there could be virus particles and other people who aren't wearing a mask, and if I'm not wearing a mask, I could be exposing other people. And if they have underlying disorders, they could be far more vulnerable than Bulletproof Jeff here, right? And I could be putting other people at risk. In fact, without ever believing you had coronavirus, without ever having symptoms of it, without even having a bad day, you could be responsible for somebody else getting seriously ill or worse. And so if we wear a mask and we thank others for wearing a mask, then it might bring out their best and they might do more of it because they're helping others and we're helping others. And so reinforcing other people, well, we share that with dogs. And you catch them doing something right. You know, you read the parenting books or the leadership books and they tell you that. Rather than looking for mistakes people make, then try to ignore most of that stuff, if not all of it. And when they do something right and they're particularly nice, just tell them what a good job they've done. So anyway, that's the major thrust of what I had to say. Stop trying to train your dog to stop doing what you don't want. People often do that. This dog needs training. He keeps doing annoying things or maybe even possibly dangerous things. I'm going to train this dog to stop doing those things. Well, frankly, that makes no sense because if you punish a dog enough times, you can teach the dog to stop doing that, but the dog has still got a motivation to engage in whatever that behavior was. It's got to do something. And some dogs who get consistently punished badly enough, then they redirect those motivations to something else. And it might even be a worse behavior. So you keep chasing one behavior after the next. Some dogs will turn it on themselves and self-mutilate. It can be pretty ugly. So think about that with everybody. Think about, let's try to ignore what we don't want, set everybody up for success. If I'm kind and I'm low-key and relaxed, then people can drop their guard a little bit and they do something right and I go, thank you. So Miss America, would you want to show people one more time? Target. Oh, very good. And you know, sometimes she's sitting in a chair. I make it a little bit easier for her. I don't make her lean out of the chair to touch her nose to it, but I don't bring it all the way to her nose. Target. Oh, very nice, honey. Here's the biscuit. There you go. So thank you for watching. Let me see if there's anybody else who had another question. I've got to figure out how to use this iPad. It's oh, for crying out loud. There we go. And yes, I'll try that type of crate. Excellent, Lisa. Just be sure that you get the kind that has a, oh, Bonnie Hansen. Bonnie, wonderful. I haven't seen you in a long time. Oh, Bonnie, just wonderful little Yorkie. Anyway, I won't go on about Bonnie's dog. You'll be jealous. She's sweet. And so thank you for coming. And if any questions come up at any point, you can send them to me on my Facebook page. And if they're pretty good questions, I might actually put them in my weekly column in the Albuquerque Journal, which in the world of digital stuff, we call that a media blog. So if you go to my website, drjeffnicol.com, drjeffnicol.com, you can subscribe. Go down to the bottom of the homepage, and you can put in your email address, and it doesn't cost anything. And every Tuesday morning in your email box, you will get the Facebook Live recording from the previous week. You don't have to watch it live. And you'll get the media blog, my newspaper column, question answer almost every time. And when you subscribe, I will send you at no charge my at-home pet first aid and CPR guide, which is worth printing out and keeping handy just in case, you know, just in case. So thank you for sharing a little bit of time with me and Miss America. You know, I had our cats, Tony and Gaston, out here, and I realized I was giving treats to Miss America. And she has an innate possessiveness of food. She will guard food. She's never hurt one of our cats, but she speaks harshly to them. And I didn't think that would be very helpful during a Facebook Live. So we put the cats downstairs, so it was just Miss America and her dad this time. So anyway, she's doing very well, and we set her up for success in this case by simply saying to the cats, boys, you can attend next week. So thank you very much for that. And again, I hope everybody stays safe and healthy. Don't freak out about coronavirus. Just wear a mask, keep 6-foot distances, and try to avoid big groups inside. You know, that makes really strong medical advice. I think this problem is going to be with us for a while yet. So let's just get used to it and take care of ourselves and everybody else. So thank you again. Have a great weekend. I'm going fishing.